Today, we explore a critical moment in any organization's journey, the decision to transform. While many companies rush into Agile or AI driven by FOMO, the fear of missing out, successful evolution requires careful preparation. We'll examine three essential steps: defining clear desired outcomes, building shared understanding through ADKAR, and avoiding the fallacy of Chesterton's fence. These are foundational elements to help us create a meaningful transformation that aligns with the company's unique needs rather than simply following industry trends. Welcome to Agile for AI. I'm Sean, lean Agile coach of over 20 years of experience and a deep passion for aligning Agile and AI to build healthier, more productive workplaces. Let's dive in. So, either your company or you, this doesn't have to be just about a company. This could be a personal decision to transform something. Transform meaning change. We have a current way of doing things, and now we're going to be looking at doing something different. That's exciting. That's wonderful. Agile culture really cultivates this, really encourages to think beyond the way that we've always done things. Yes, the way that we've always done things has led us to today, and that's safe. However, is that going to allow us to continue forever? Is that going to allow us to grow, to be better, to do different things? Probably not. Everything is always changing, and we need to change along the way. And there's a safe way to do it, and there are not so safe ways to doing it. Transformations are about helping us get in a safe, successful way from our current state to a future state. Now, let's do a little reality check here. Most large-scale initiatives fail. The statistics are not good at all. McKinsey, for example, reports a 70% failure. Boston Consulting Group, 75%. Harvard Business Review, between 66 and 75%. This is pretty consistent. A great majority of transformation efforts fail. Even Agile itself reports failures in 80-85% rates. So what is it that's going on? Why, if we've decided to make an investment, if we've decided to put effort into these changes, is there so much failure? And when we look at it carefully, experience shows us that it's not about the processes and tools that we're trying to deploy. That tends to be pretty stable, and that tends to not be where the problem is. It's human factors. The lack of a clear vision and outcome. We're decided to move where? What is the destination? What does that look like? Poor change management. We didn't properly prepare to make sure that we covered everything that we needed along the way in order to be successful in this implementation. An insufficient understanding of our current state. If we don't understand where we are today, putting this change in context becomes very difficult, and that leads to a lot of resistance, not necessarily because of some stubborn attitude or even being against it. It's just simply that we don't understand what's wrong with the current state. Why are we doing this? That definitely leads to a lot of resistance to change. And oftentimes we have misalignment with leadership, where there's an expectation senior leadership will see things from one perspective that doesn't really align with the day-to-day realities of the organization. So there are many reasons why this can fail. Also, the transformation, the decision that led to the transformation itself maybe is not as valid as we think. Many decisions are driven solely by FOMO. For example, it could be an industry trend. Everybody else is doing it. It begs the question, why aren't we doing it? So just go ahead and do it. Well, was that the best thing? Was that the most appropriate thing for the company? If we didn't look, we don't know. Or there may be pressures from competitors or the marketplace. When people are looking for a company to do business with, they're evaluating the companies. Oftentimes, the things that fall into these transformation categories become checklist items. Are you doing X? Yes, we are. Okay, great. Next question. And you continue the conversation. And if you don't have that, it can sometimes stop the entire process. Oh, you don't do that. Well, so sorry. We're looking for somebody who is. Why? Why is that important? Maybe it's relevant. Maybe it's not relevant. So there are external factors that can influence this decision and require us to go down a path that may or may not be necessary for the company just to remain competitive. Or there could just simply be the fear of being left behind. Maybe everybody else is seeing something that we're not seeing it. And if we don't do it, how is that positioning us for the future? Is that leaving us in a disadvantageous standpoint relative to others? So we rush. We rush into the transformation. We have to get this done. It's like that's something. So we put it into some Gantt chart out there that we have to get it done, and that leads to oftentimes failed initiatives. And when we fail, well, there's the waste of investment, all of the time, the money that's gone into it. The teams become burned out, and it really fosters a degradation of trust. It erodes trust in leadership. Why did you set us off in this direction only to have it fail? It becomes sometimes a pattern of, oh, it's this week's toy. Let's go from this one to the next one. Well, we were already working on the last one. Why is this one going to be any different? Those are valid concerns, and they really erode the trust relationship with leadership if we're not careful, if we have too many of these. So it's really important to take a close look before we start the transformation to make sure that we are properly prepared and that what we're doing is consistent with our needs. So there's a bit of risk management perspective that we need to bring into the process. Agile promotes risk management. In fact, one of the things that I found out as I was learning all about Agile is I started looking for Agile risk management books. If you go out on Amazon right now and you look for them, you'll find a couple of titles. There aren't many that are explicitly labeled Agile risk management. And as I learned more, I realized that the reason for this is because Agile is a risk management approach to implementing whatever it is that we're trying to implement. It has built into it a lot of feedback loops that are constantly making sure that we are remaining aware of the risks and that we manage them in some way. Whichever approach we're taking, we need to make sure that we build a foundation for success and that we're creating meaningful, useful change. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to have a clear definition of what our desired outcomes are. And a desired outcome is not just a statement of a goal. It has a very clear definition. It's very succinct, and it paints a picture of what the future state looks like. So they're specific and measurable. There's a very specific and measurable way of determining whether we're there or we're not. We want to make sure that they're aligned with the company values. And sometimes it's true. The very thing that we're trying to change is a fact, an aspect, or maybe wholesale, an aspect of the company values. And if that's the case, we need to make sure that that change indeed is necessary. If ever, that's one that we want to make sure absolutely certain that it is. It has to have a clear business value. If we're just changing things, but we're not seeing what the benefit to the business is going to be, that's not a good desired outcome, a statement of a desired outcome. They have to be realistic and ambitious. The ambition, if we're going to make all this effort, we better get something good out of it. So we want to stretch ourselves as much as possible and be realistic. Not stretch so much as it's going to be impossible. That's a setup for failure. And we want to get a lot out of it because this is going to cost us a lot. It's going to cost a lot of money sometimes, and it's certainly going to cost a lot of personal effort. The learning process is a painful and long one. Nobody just flips a switch and all of a sudden has adopted a new way of doing things overnight. That is unrealistic. That does not happen. It's going to take a lot of personal effort from all people involved in order to get us there. If we're going to make that amount of effort, personal, monetary, company-wise, we need to make sure that we are clear about what this success looks like. And then understand that it's worthwhile doing it because of the benefits that we're going to get. So when we're defining our desired outcomes, there are some very common mistakes. For example, they're too vague. Be more agile. Add AI to our products or services. And my favorite one is increase revenue. I've seen those statements from senior leadership many times. What is your desired outcome? We want to increase our revenue. Okay, that makes me stop. Hopefully, there's never a case when the desired outcome is to reduce our revenue. So let's assume that this is a trivial case and it doesn't tell us anything at all about what it is that we're going to be changing and why. These are critical elements of a desired outcome statement that need to be part of the statement. And it's not a long paragraph. It needs to be very, very, very succinct, but in a few sentences, ideally one sentence, we get the clear statement of what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. Another very common mistake is that they focus too much on the tools and the processes, the what, the how it gets in, sorry, not the what, but the how we're going to implement this. And that's a distraction. That's a means, not an end. So for example, implement Jira, adopt Scrum or Kanban. That's not a desired outcome. That's just a means to an end. What is the end? What are we implementing Jira for? Why are we adopting Scrum and Kanban for? What is the purpose of it? What are we getting out of that? It in and on itself is not the end goal. There needs to be some reason why these things are valuable to the company. When we do that, when we focus too much on the how of the implementation, we constrain the potential solutions before understanding what's actually needed to be achieved. It also makes it harder to measure real business value. Having Jira doesn't automatically mean better business results. What's behind that implementation? It can be Jira, it can be anything else, but I'm just using an example. It can lead to just checking the box behavior. Yes, we did it. It's all done. It was in the Gantt chart. We got it all done, 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 done. We are there. That's just taking teams through motions without achieving any meaningful change. Yes, we did a lot of stuff, but that's just being busy. Why did we do it? What did we accomplish from that? Accomplishing, being able to say, we have Jira, Scrum, Kanban, that means nothing. That is just stuff. Now what? How is it going to benefit the business? We have AI in our products, okay? And what did that do? Did it make our products better? Did it make them worse? Did they erode the customer experience to the point that our customers are now frustrated working with us because we implemented AI? We checked the box, but we actually hurt the business by engaging in that transformation effort. When we focus on that how, and then we make the how the object of our focus, we miss underlying business needs. We need to do better than that. If we don't, we create resistance as people focus on these things to be done and ignore, or they're just not aware of what and why we're doing it. That causes misalignment with the company needs. So what we want to do is we want to use the desired outcomes as a definition of the North Star that's guiding us towards a direction. There's a destination. What is that destination? That desired outcome needs to give us a clear mental picture of what that final state, when we get there, we can recognize that we're there because the desired outcome was clear about it. And this is what guides us along the journey. One thing I wanted to add to this definition of the desired outcomes is when using the desired outcomes, I find that they're helpful certainly in transformations and any change initiative that you're engaging in. And they're also very helpful in day-to-day interactions with AIs. As I write prompts with AIs, I always make sure that I include a context section and a desired outcome section. And what that does is that it gives me a really helpful anchor to the conversation with the AI. It helps the AI to highlight when I start going off, veering off in things that aren't too important. The AI will chime in and say, yes, and this does not contribute towards the desired outcome. Or conversely, it uses it to confirm that the thing that we're discussing, the path that we're going, aligns with the desired outcome. So it's a way to maybe constrain, but I'd rather say focus the efforts that we're doing towards that desired outcome. And as a result, what I get out of the AI is much, much, much better than if I omit that desired outcome. So you want to have a very clear, concise, one sentence ideally, no more than that, that answers the questions of what it is that you're building. So you have a clear picture of what that is and why you're doing it. Avoid putting how statements into it. It doesn't matter, that can come later. You want to have that clear definition of what and why. And then we can start talking about implementing whatever needs to be changed in order to reach that desired outcome. And this is where Prosci's ADKAR model is really, really, really helpful. I particularly like it. I find it very useful. And I want to be clear that it's not the only change management model. There are many out there. This one in particular, I find it very helpful, and I wanted to highlight it because it has 5 key elements that I think in whatever change management method you use, it's really good to incorporate them, and we'll go through all of the elements. So the first one in the ADKAR model is that of awareness. So ADKAR stands for awareness, drive, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And what we want is to, when we're talking about awareness, is creating a not just an informational brochure that, or memo that tells people change is coming. Okay, we let everybody know that it's coming and that's it, they're aware. No, that's not what we mean. It's not just an FYI in the change. It's a why the change is needed. That's the most important thing. It's like, why do we need to do this? We're asking you to put a lot of effort. Why this is important to do. One of the ways that we start is by stating our current state. We're currently at this point. This is what's working. This is what's not working. We want to get to this desired state. If you've taken the step of defining your desired outcome, this should be very easy to do. Is that we have this desired state as defined by our desired outcome. And as you can see, the desired outcome is not our current state. Very clear. We need to change something. We need to do something in order to get there. And then highlight the impact of not changing so that people are aware of the danger and the risk of failing in this initiative. This is what's going to happen if we don't implement this, if we're not successful at it. This is going to help build the next point, which is that of desire. This is a personal motivation to be engaged in, to participate. What is it in it for me? Okay, how does it relate to me? Why do I want to put the time into it? Oh, I understand, because in this way, I'm going to be aligned with the company's needs. I'm going to be able to continue contributing to the business needs. Therefore, my employment is probably going to be safe because I am contributing, or I am going to have an opportunity as this change is implemented to move forward in my career, because now all of a sudden things are changing. Change is an opportunity. And therefore, this is what's in it for me. Or just simply being aware and not feeling left behind. Sometimes that's sufficient enough. Whatever the reasons, there's something that's giving me a motivation to be engaged in this change. Any change requires people to learn. They need to learn something. The learning process requires, number one, mindfulness. We're aware that we're doing something. It requires will to change. The desire to change, that's what we're talking about here in ADKAR. And then repetition, over and over again until it sticks. This desire piece, I have found when people don't want to change, there is no amount of training or coaching that you can apply to make them change. It's not possible. This is a requirement for the human brain to change. That's the way that we're wired. There will be resistance. Some people will definitely bring up concerns, and that's very valid. Any change is scary, and we need to be open, listen to them, create a psychologically safe environment that people can express their concerns, because that gives us the opportunity to address them. If we don't give that opportunity, then people will have that silently, and that will become an impediment to the change, to learning. So you want to create a safe environment. And that leads us to knowledge. This is the phase where we acquire the skills. We learn the things that are needed in order to be able to implement in the new way. So there will be things to learn. There's knowledge transfer that needs to happen. And the key thing here, I think, that we need to watch out for is how to implement that training, how to facilitate the learning process so that it's most effective. A very common way is to have these really, really, really big and intensive training campaigns. And there are benefits and there are also risks associated with them. Risks, especially if we don't construct the training in such a way that gives everybody immediate opportunity to apply what's just been learned. If that doesn't happen, people are going to forget the majority of it. And the training time and money that has been spent is largely lost. So I really caution on not overdoing it. We want to have what I would call a just-in-time learning. As we're preparing to implement some new thing, some new way of doing things, some new tool, some new process, some new approach, some new way of thinking, as we're going into that phase, that's the right moment to give the training. It's relevant, it's timely, and it's immediately applicable. And that immediately applicable is important because that's the thing that's going to give people opportunity to test this under different scenarios that they haven't tried before. And they're going to see for themselves how it goes. And they will fail. People will fail the first time that they're trying to do it. And think of riding a bicycle. The first time that you do it, you're going to fall. That's just the way that it is. And we learn through repetition how not to fall. And once we got it, now we can go on. So the best thing is to do it just in time. Now, there are other approaches. I just want to be complete. For example, there is a dojo approach. The dojo approach, what it does is it sets aside time and people are relieved from their regular duties. When we don't do that, people have to juggle their regular jobs and their deliverables with the trainings. That creates a lot of pressure, and oftentimes that becomes an impediment to people learning. Instead, what companies will do is they will relieve people from all responsibilities. They just have to learn. And sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's longer. I've known of a month-long or more trainings. And it's very intensive. It's like a boot camp. And there, you're not just going through talks and delivery of communication of information, but you're actually doing it as part of the process. So it's built into it to have the practice so that you really reaffirm that knowledge and put it into practice in different scenarios, prepared scenarios, that helps you to assimilate the material better. That is an approach, and it's a very effective approach. Toyota has used it for many years, and it's very, very, very successful. And it's also very complicated to do that. It requires a lot of effort to set it up. It's very costly. It tends to be very costly. You have a large number of people who are not working at the same time that need to be relieved from their duties. That's costly. That's difficult to coordinate. So it's a lot of challenges. And it is a valid way. Whichever way your company goes or you go in, if this is a personal transformation that you're doing, the key thing is make sure that the setup is optimum to help people learn. Whichever way, there are different approaches, and maintain clear understanding that just the transmission of knowledge does not immediately result in understanding. Knowledge is not the same as understanding. We can know the details of an activity. I can know every single detail of basketball and how basketball is played. Does that immediately mean that I can be a basketball player? No. Why? Because I don't understand all of the aspects of it. I haven't internalized them to develop the skill. I've been able to respond in the proper ways and act in the proper ways under certain conditions. And there are many different conditions. So knowledge does not equal understanding. Understanding comes later through a lot of practice, repetition, over and over and over again. And that's what leads us into the next point about ADKAR, which is ability. It's developing that ability to put that knowledge into practice. We need to make sure that we create the supportive environment, removing any obstacles, so that people have that opportunity to develop the new muscles, the new muscle memory, to apply the new way of doing things. And once we're there, once we're actually executing based on the new way of doing things, now we need to reinforce this. There needs to be a lot of positive reinforcement. It can't be punitive, telling people that either you do it or that's not a good way to inspire people into new behaviors. And one of the things that I have observed is that in many transformations, part of the failure has been that we don't celebrate the successes, small successes. That has a really important psychological impact on people. We go through all of this effort, we put all of this time, and nothing happens. We just keep on going to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. That's exhausting. Even if it's small, take a moment to celebrate the success. We've managed to inch our way forward. Fantastic. Good job. It's not just about giving participation trophies. That's taking it to the extreme. Have a valid success. Doesn't matter that it's small, but a valid success, and celebrate it. Really, that goes a long way to helping people keep people motivated and reaffirm that this path that we're going on is a good path and it's working. And along the way, be open to course correction. You're going to learn something along the way as you implement the change. Be open to changing it. Don't be so constrained that we set out on this and we committed to this and it has to be this. Along the way, you'll learn something that might change it. Be open to it. That's okay. It's part of the learning process. So ADKAR gives us a really good framework that by implementing all this, by watching all of these stages, we can make sure that everybody is properly aware, informed of what it is that we're doing, why it's important, the cost of not doing it. They have the information necessary to want to be part of it. And then we give them whatever skill upgrades, upskilling necessary to get there. We reinforce the behaviors till the application actually sticks. And this gives us a good framework for change management. Again, there are other ways to do it, but I like this approach because it's very clear on these really important phases to implement change. And with that, the other thing I wanted to share with you was about the fallacy of Chesterton's fence. The origin comes from the term was coined by G.K. Chesterton in his 1929 book, The Thing Why I Am a Catholic. There's a principle behind it, which is that before reforming or abolishing an existing institution, law, or structure, understand the original purpose and reasoning behind it. What this is about is we want to avoid just having a solution and not having a clear understanding of what it is that we're changing before we implement it. And I think this is something that consultants, coaches, we really need to take this to heart. When coming into organizations with the best of intentions, we're hired to implement change. And it's very easy to just focus on the change. We know exactly how to do it. We've been there. We know how to help organizations through. And that's what we focus on. And we don't spend time learning how people are currently doing things. Now, that's dangerous because I've also observed many coaches going native. They just simply start behaving like everybody else in the company. And that's useless. It's like you don't need to hire a consultant, a coach to become like everybody else in the company. That's not helpful. What I'm talking about here is getting to a point of understanding how things are operating today sufficiently so that we know, based on our experience and our expertise, we know that when we change something, these will be the effects. It's the unexpected effects, the unintended side effects of a change that we want to avoid incurring the damage from it. There have been times in history we've seen it. It's like get rid of all of the rats. Next thing you have is bubonic plague. You get rid of sparrows. Now you have famine in countries. This is what we want to avoid. We need to understand why things are the way that they are today. It doesn't mean that they are correct. There may be very invalid, very uninformed, very misinformed reasons for things to be the way that they are today, but they're there for a reason. If we don't understand those reasons, don't change it. Okay? Take a step back. This requires a little bit of humility and saying, I don't know. Let's have a conversation about it. Assess the current state and then move forward once we have the understanding. Oh, I get it. This is why you did it. Well, it turns out that that's not how it works. So when we implement the change, we're safe. We're not going to destabilize anything. Otherwise, that sticky and chewing gum on the wall that we think is just garbage, we didn't realize that it was the element that was keeping the wall up, and all of a sudden the wall comes down. Load-bearing paper clips. Yeah, that's what happens. We need to be really careful and understand. Many times I've seen that the frontline workers, they're the ones who really know why things are the way that they are. And there's oftentimes a huge disconnect between senior leadership's expectations of how the company is operating versus the day-to-day reality of how it actually operates. So in coming up with, as part of your change management plan, I think it's really important to include as many voices as possible. Obviously, you can't have everybody participate, but at least representatives of as many areas of your business as possible, so that you have opportunity to hear from them. Oh, this is actually the way that we're doing it. When you do that, this is what's going to happen. Be careful. You want to be careful before you would change this because it has this potential side effect. That's a really good opportunity as part of that risk management analysis before implementing a change to have those conversations. That's the best time to have them, not after you have implemented them and discover that something's gone bonkers. That's not a good place to go. So we want to avoid assumptions, investigate if the purpose for whatever we're going to change is still valid or not. It's not valid, okay, fine, go ahead and change it. If it's still valid, then figure out how to factor that into your change plan. Common pitfall is that we get tunnel vision into solution first thinking. The solution is the thing. Yeah, it's important. And we should be clear. I just talked to you about how being clear about what it is that we're going to change. And we want to balance that with understanding the realities of what the context in which we're going to implement those solutions. Otherwise, we're undervaluing the current existing practices. And we may be throwing important things out the door. We build trust through demonstrating that we understand what it is that we're going to change. That demonstrates respect. It acknowledges the history that got us to today's condition, our current state. And it really increases the chances of implementing a safe change that's not going to derail everything in our company. So Chesterton's fence can save us implementing things that are dangerous, that are potentially beyond disruptive to our company, disruptive in a way that can damage our company. And they can give us a much broader perspective of the reality of the situation so that the change that we're implementing can be more appropriately phrased, framed, and implemented in a way that will ultimately deliver the value that we're seeking. So the combination of these elements, having a clear desired outcome, that's going to be our North Star, that as we're moving along, we're doing things, we're changing things, we're implementing, we have a quick, easy way to validate that we're moving towards that desired outcome. If along the way we see that what we're doing is taking us away from that desired outcome, that's a great checkpoint to reassess what we're doing and potentially do a course correction or reevaluate if the desired outcome is still where we want to get to. But either way, it's that North Star that's telling us where we're heading relative to where we expect to. Having a good change management plan ADKAR is a suggestion that creates the conditions for implementing those changes will increase the likelihood of things going well, as opposed to just simply hiring a bunch of training, bringing people in, letting them know that we're doing this. You put them to training and expect that you're done. Check it off the list. No, that seldom works, if ever. So no, you want to avoid doing that. And instead, you really want to create a buzz around it. This is exciting. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for change, and change can bring about good things. So let's get excited about it. Let's get everybody on board, and let's create the proper conditions for optimum learning experiences and change. And then avoid making silly mistakes that you could avoid if you just simply take the moment to evaluate what it is that we're affecting, what we're impacting, what we're about to impact, to the point that we understand it. We don't have to agree with it. We just simply have to understand it. This is the mechanics. This is how it works. And when we implement the change, we are confident that we're going to get the result that we want without having secondary impact to something that we could have never anticipated. This is the way to do it, avoiding the fallacy of Chesterton's fence. I have put in the description links to Prosci's ADKAR. There's a video. Prosci has put together a playlist, so you have a very nice description of all of this in more detail than I've covered here today. And also the link to their website. They have ebooks that you can get from them. I highly recommend that you take a look at that if you're interested in the change management aspect. And for the fallacy of Chesterton's fence, I also put a link to a couple of videos, very short videos, very nice videos that give you a further explanation of fallacy of Chesterton's fence and why it's so relevant and useful. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that it helps you set up your change initiative for success. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights in building adaptive, resilient organizations in the era of AI. Thanks for watching.